Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Don Castro, and you are tuning in to the What's in Your Case podcast. Our guest today is an artist that creates multimedia art that is educational and influenced by life experience, music, numerology, and pop culture. Their ultimate desire is to create a digital space that is welcoming for those that understand the delicate balance and special relationship between the spiritual, the practical, mental health, and magic. My friend and guest, Eboni, or as they're known, EbonixEsra.
Hi! I'm so happy to be here. This is so cool.
From what I've heard when you've performed, it's mostly been instrumentals or beats. Do you play any instruments?
If you're talking like electronic instruments, I play my Akai and PC1. Well, I grew up playing the djembe, and then in college, I learned how to play the doumbek. So I have some basic knowledge of how to play different hand drums, which I think that a lot of people think that it's, just banging on the drum. That's all it takes. And it's like, no, there's actual technique to full hand and finger-based hand drums. And, there's still an understanding of music theory that goes into playing the drums in general, even hand drums. So my knowledge is pretty basic at this point of my life, but I do use it when I am making beats. So I often take influence from the doumbek, in particular, the finger-based drumming, in order to make more intricate beats and things like that.
And a question I like to ask my musical guest is, do you name your instrument? And if so, what are their names?
Do I name? So my doumbek, which is like right outside of this room, I call her Lady. She doesn't necessarily have like a name, if that makes sense. Like, she has a name, like a moniker, but she doesn't have a name. Like, I don't call her Monica or, I just call her the Lady because it's ceramic and there's a bunch of women that are on the drum. Like, they're like painted on or like emplaced like little ceramic tiles on the drum.
And that's the only one?
That's my only one. The only one that I've named. Like, my guitar and my keyboard, I haven't named those. They're just guitar and keyboard. I guess you could say they're guitar and keyboardy, but I don't name them, Maybe I should start.
And then you mentioned you use your doumbek when you're making beats, but what is the process like for you when you're creating your beats? How do you choose the right beats for your music? Is it lyrics first and then music, or then music first and then lyrics to that?
Even though I grew up playing the djembe, there are periods of time where I wasn't playing it at all, and then I picked up drumming again in college. So between that time, I was always writing. So I have so many lyrics that just out of sheer necessity, I guess, I make the lyrics usually come first because I just have so many lyrics to make beats too. Mm-hmm. That usually is how it goes. But every now and then, especially now that I have my Akai and PC1, I'm making beats to the lyrics, but every now and then I'll have a beat that I make first and then some lyrics. There's a song I wrote called No Home, and I made the beat for that first. I was working on a beat to lyrics that I already made, accidentally overwrote that beat, cried about it, tried to make the beat again, and in the process of trying to make that beat again, I made an entirely different beat and then wrote lyrics to that beat. And it definitely does change how I write. And it's not necessarily good or bad. It's just different. So I usually like writing lyrics first.
And I've heard your music at open mics, but I wasn't able to find them online. Do you have plans to release it online at any time?
Yes. And I did used to have a couple things on SoundCloud, but I took it off just because I didn't really like the mix. It just wasn't, for anybody that paints, it's almost like painting a whole painting and then you put a varnish over it, but the varnish is not what you want. It changes everything. That's kind of how the mix was. It's like, ooh, that wasn't, that's not what I wanted. But I do have plans on releasing the music to Spotify, to YouTube. I do also want to make a Bandcamp because I already do so many different things. I'm trying to be smart about where I put the music so that I can actually better manage what I'm doing. So for now, my goals is really just to post it to Spotify and YouTube,
Your Instagram has very limited posts at the moment. But from what I see, there are several posts about you modeling that we'll get into just a little bit later, as well as a picture mosaic of you wearing your custom-made do-rag.
Yes.
How important is it for you to keep a certain aesthetic to your Instagram?
There have been times where I haven't really thought about it all that much, and then there have been times where I've thought about it more closely. More recently, I've been thinking about it more closely just because I do have plans on releasing music and more art at the end of this year, and then again in February and March and April. So, I have, release time periods in mind. So I'm trying to not post, too many different things that will throw off what my plans are. I would say right now it's pretty important just because I have, a bit of a theme going, and I want certain, bright neon colors on there. And of course, next year, the color scheme is going to change. Not going to reveal that just yet, but it will probably change to reflect the new direction I'm taking.
So the photo shoot that you modeled for was for Real Babes magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Real Babes magazine is a woman-owned 18-plus, body-positive boudoir magazine. How did the opportunity for you to collaborate with them come to be?
Okay. I'm not saying these social media spaces are perfect. They're not by far. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, Facebook's dead, this and the other. But a lot of opportunities I've gotten to connect with community has been through Facebook. And that's how I came across that opportunity. It was in one of the queer trade, queer free spaces that I was in, or that I'm in on Facebook. I always forget the exact name of the Facebook group because there's 3 or 4 of them that I'm in that have queer market, queer free market. It might have been the queer free market or the queer trade group. But essentially, Molly, they go by Good Little Molly on Instagram. They're also a photographer and a model. She was posting about it. She was looking for people to model for an LGBT pride shoot. This would have been for June. We had to wear the different colors of the different flags. And a few years ago, I knitted a bi pride bathing suit because I knit too. And I was I really want to knit something new because I wanted to knit something for the agender flag, but I didn't have enough time. But then I was so I almost said no is what I'm trying to say. I almost canceled myself out and was oh, I don't have enough time. Then I was I don't know if people have even seen the bathing suit. I really want to do a photo shoot. This seems like it'd be really friendly towards queer people and femmes and things like that. So I contacted them on Facebook and I was hey, you still need people, And they were yeah, we still need people. And they told me how the shoot was going to go and everything like that. So there were multiple photographers, multiple models. And it was so fun. It really opened my eyes to how fun modeling could be because I usually make the clothes. I don't usually want to be the one in front of the camera necessarily. But that kind of changed my mind. I was if this is what it could be, consistently, I'm down.
So there'll be more modeling opportunities for you in the future.
Yes, especially if I get an excuse to wear my own clothes. Because that was also why I wanted to do it. I was oh, I want to show off my knitwear, What other opportunity could I have where I'm wearing a bi pride bathing suit for a pride shoot?
And I like that you credited pretty much everyone involved in the project, from the photographers, Good Little Molly, I'm Liv Williams, and Phoenix_Glamour, to the people that provided the pants and shoes, Just Fab Online, the person that did your nails, Funeral Slut Creations, as well as the location, Bear Dive Sack. How important is it for you to make sure that each artist gets the credit for things that they've worked on?
Yes. So I actually did my own nails, but Funeral Set Creations made the earrings and they made the choker. Yeah, I should have probably fixed that on my thing. I quickly did my own nails. I was oh my gosh. I was freaking out. But yes, they made I'm actually wearing them right now, the earrings and the choker too. They're one of my favorite jewelry pieces. But yes, it's so important because I think that when people, especially if you decide to be the face of something, right? As a model, you're kind of acting as a representative of something bigger than yourself. And so I think that it is very important to make sure that everybody is seen. It makes me think of Sarah Bareilles, and I always forget his name. Sorry to that man. Can't remember his name right now. It was an award show that they were helping to host, and they wrote a song about the people that don't win the awards and the people that work in the background or the supporting actors and pretty much all the people that aren't the name brand people of a said work. And if you are able to find it, if you know what I'm talking about, if you hear this audio and or you're able to find it based on my description, that is why I find it to be so important, because it's bigger than just us. Even if you made something all by yourself, usually, maybe there was someone that taught you how to do that thing. Even if it wasn't direct, maybe you watched a YouTube video of someone doing it and that inspired you to do it too. I think appreciation goes a long way, and I think it helps build community. As much as I am quite American, I also come from a culture that is very communal, and I don't think that I would be the person I am today without that communal aspect. Like, I wouldn't be the individual I am today without that communal aspect.
And then it was fundraising for Lavender Libraries. What is Lavender Libraries?
Oh, yes. So I added that in because I love Lavender Library. The thing I love about social media now is like you can just quickly tag and be like, hey, if you want to donate money here, send money. I think that's like a nice feature that social media has. But Lavender Library, they're a queer trans library. It's like a private library technically. I don't know if it's private, so let me not say that. It's not like a public library in the sense that it's not like government ran, right? These were people in community that decided, hey, like, we need a space where you should be able to look up books related to the LGBTQIA plus community. They're in Sacramento. I believe they're on 21st Street. I always forget the cross street, so I don't know if it's 21st and N or M, but it's right around that area. If you're familiar with where the Press Club used to be or where Holy Diver is, it's right around that area. And it's really beautiful. They have things like Queer Crafternoons. They might even have it today. I think it's first and third Saturday or Sundays or something like that. But if you look them up on Instagram, Lavender Library or Sac Lavender Library, they're always doing stuff. It's so needed, especially in the age of like anti-intellectualism and so much like homophobia and queer transphobia, just running rampant these days. I mean, it's been running rampant, but it's nice to know that there's havens out there. And it's a nice third place.
If you're listening to this, there's still time. You can go to the posts on their page and donate to the Lavender Libraries.
Yes, please do. Please do. It goes a long way. If y'all are familiar with like Michael Threets and like the whole movement to like really promote libraries, Lavender Library is a library. It's a place for people to go that you don't have to buy anything. You don't have to stunt on anybody to be seen. Like as much as I love fashion, I'm a fashion girly. You can come as you are, chill there, read a book, read a magazine, learn something new. They're always looking for volunteers. I used to volunteer there and it was pretty wonderful. There's still time, and even a little bit goes a long way. So even if it's $2, $3, like that adds up. Thank you ahead of time if you donate or share.
And then you have another Instagram. Is it I Dream of X?
I Dream of Exy. Yes. Oh my gosh, you did everything. I feel so appreciated right now. Yes. So I need to do more to that page. So I own a business where I provide knitwear to people, numerology readings, and I'm actually promoting. I need to start this. I need to get on it. Hold me to this, listeners. Please hold me to this. But I am starting a knitting 101 class later this fall. So stay tuned for that. And so that's what that page is mostly dedicated for. So if you look on the page, there's like Monday moods or mood Mondays where I'm giving like mini numerology readings based on like the energy of that day, like the numbers and how it relates to day-to-day life. There's tags of me modeling just because I'm like putting on the knitwear and like I'm showing the work that I can do and things like that. So if you're interested in like studying the relationship between like numbers and fashion, the magical and the mundane, as I put it, I Dream of Exy is great. And EXE stands for Ethereal Earth. My website, etherealxearth.net is my website. And there's links to the website through the Instagram page. So if you're curious and you want to learn more, you can always like check that out too. But I like saying Exy for short because Exy sounds cuter. It sounds fashionable. My goal is to blend athleisure with like bohemian type fashion. So like ethereal with like athleisure like type fashion. But it's not, obviously you won't be working out in the knitwear. It's just you know, people wear like athletic clothing, like, but for fashion. Like, imagine that, but with like frills and frills, and it's all knitwear. And like, if you're a knitter, mohair, like athletic tops and shorts and things like that. So that type of thing is my goal. So check out, you know, wait out for 2025. It's going to be a big year. To answer your question, go back to the whole aesthetic thing. That's why I haven't touched my Instagram, because I'm like, I have things that I'm working on and I have set things that I'm going to be posting. So I want the grid to look a certain way, which I know is so meticulous, but it's going to be cute, y'all.
And then on your Instagram bio, you have 3 links posted. One is for a survey, the other one goes to the websites, and the third has a Spotify with different playlists. But let's tackle each one at a time.
Yes.
So what is the survey on the page?
Yes. So as I was saying earlier, I do own a business, Ethereal Earth. And years ago, I was in a business fellowship. And the business fellowship was specifically focused on developing a social enterprise, right? So essentially, a business that is hyper-focused on providing opportunities to community, right? Like, I'm not just selling you something. I'm selling you something, and that money goes towards a greater good. Think like Tom Shoes, for example. If anybody's not familiar with Tom Shoes, they used to have the whole thing where if you bought a shoe, they would give a shoe. And obviously there's critiques to be had about that model, but their heart was in the right place, I feel. And so essentially with my business, I really want to make sure that I'm catering to the needs of the target markets that I have in mind, right? So femmes, queer trans people, people who want to learn more about like spiritual things, but like in an accessible way. People who want to live a spiritual life, but don't want to be dogmatic about it, right? So I really want to make sure that I'm like hitting those points for people and really tapping in to the best of my ability. So that's what that survey is for. The more survey responses, the more balanced out I can look at things. And so please take this survey. I'd so appreciate it. And I do have plans of rewarding people that take that survey. There already is, if I'm not mistaken, there should already be a discount in the survey itself at the very end. And it's a pretty hefty discount. And if you go to my website, I even like use Apple Pay, or not Apple Pay, Afterpay, PayPal invoice, which allows you to pay for things over time. So if something is not accessible enough to you, please just message me. Like, I'm a crafter, craft person. And obviously I believe in like fair wages, but I also believe in like accessibility. So that's what that survey is for.
I noticed that when I click the link for your website, it's currently not available. Is that something that we're looking forward to in 2025?
No, that's something you can look forward to like next week. So by the time you hear this audio, it'll be up. I actually changed the domain. So I used to have the domain as my artist name, but I changed it to etherealxearth.net because that's the actual name of my business versus for a long time, I deliberated, like I was like, ooh, should I just have like a general website that includes like my music and all my personal stuff, like me as an individual and my business, or should they be separate? And for the longest time, I had them all in the same place. And so I titled the website EbonixEsra.com. And then I realized that's a lot. Let me have a website dedicated to my lyrics and my music specifically. And then my website dedicated to like my business. So you'll soon see a fourth link where it's EbonixEsra.com, EtherealXearth.net, and then the survey and then the Spotify link on my EbonixEsra, Instagram page.
Speaking of the Spotify link, tell us about these numerology playlists.
Yes. And there's one coming out in October. There's going to be 2. One is going to be for Aftershock because I go to Aftershock every year and I do a thing called IB Metal. I did it the year before last. And then my numerology playlist specifically, since that's what we're kind of focused on right now. I love, like I was saying earlier, I love talking about the relationship between day-to-day life and the magical and numerology and spiritual stuff and all that jazz. because I feel like it should be a seamless relationship. One pet peeve of mine is when people like talk normally and then they go into a spiritual space and then they're like, now let me talk in a completely different way, you know? That's not how you talk. And so the numerology playlist is kind of my way of taking that stance and being like, what if with each song you listen to and dance to or like shook your ass to, whatever, you know what I'm saying? What if like you also got to learn a little bit about numerology as you listen to the song? Because the song itself is describing the numerology, like the energy behind that number. So for example, and I'll pull it up because I'm pretty sure it's the one from Pride Month because that's my favorite one. So I just like kept it on there. June 2024 playlist. So this one, the numbers are 05060824. So the 0506 is related to, the month was 5 energy, which is related to like freedom of speech, liberation, hedonism, things like that. The 6 is like for June because it's the 6th month of the year. The 8 is related to the numerological year, which is related to like money, financial abundance, abundance in love and abundance in general, repetition and infinity, that type of vibe, right? Where it's like this continuous energy. And then 24 is 2024. So that's usually why I number it the way that I do. And you have everybody on that playlist from like Kim Petras to Powerman 5000, Princess Nokia, Kehlani, Britney Spears, Doja Cat, Megan Thee Stallion, because I love Megan Thee Stallion. But yeah, so it's like I put those artists on there because I wanted to educate people of like what 5 energy is, right? Because a lot of times when people talk about numerology or astrology, they throw out all these different terms and words, but there's no like practical application of those things. And so it can lead to people just being confused versus like this numerology playlist. It's like, you might not be able to have all the words to like what 5 energy is, but you know what it sounds like. You can dance to it and groove to it and like listen to the lyrics of these different songs and get an idea. Kim Petras' song, Superpower Bitch, like, I think I made that the first song on the playlist because I was like, yeah, if there's 5 energy, listen to that song and you'll get an idea of what 5 energy is.
So I want to jump into a couple other of your social medias. I noticed on your TikTok account there's no videos, but you do use it for the shop feature on the app. What has it been like trying to sell using the TikTok shop?
You know, I've got no hits on there, and I actually plan on taking the TikTok shop down just because I'm not using it like that. I used to also have an Instagram shop, but TikTok, I've been trying so hard to just be on TikTok, but I just haven't had the energy. I'm keeping it real, y'all. Like, if y'all encourage me, if y'all are going to be on there with me, I'll give it one more try. But it's just so many social media things. But I will say, integrating onto the TikTok shop, it wasn't that hard. It was actually pretty easy. If y'all need tips on how to do it yourself, hit me up and I will guide you through how I did it. It wasn't that bad. But I will say that maintaining that on top of the website, on top of my Etsy and stuff like that, maybe I need to just take this TikTok shop down. So I'm actually going to take that down, and I might not even use my TikTok like that unless I feel like I'm really going to get the engagement that I really am looking for on there, which I know is possible on there. It just means that I have to put in time on that app. You know what I mean? And there's always I don't know. It's just a lot. So that kind of answers that question, hopefully.
And then the same thing with your YouTube channel, I Dream of Exy. There's currently nothing posted on it. Any plans on releasing content there?
So yes, that will have content on it. So my Instagram, so to give y'all an idea of where to really find me and engage with me, you're gonna do your best looking on my website, looking on Instagram, and then looking on my YouTube channel. I did have a video up. I'll probably put it back up. I'm a perfectionist and I was like, oh, I could do better with this audio. And I'm still working on how to handle using audio and all that jazz, the tech side of music or the tech side of creativity. So there's a lot of gain that it's all static and stuff. So I was like, I don't really like this, so I took it down. But the YouTube channel is mostly going to be me talking about creating clothing, my spiritual process that I mix into creating clothing, me talking about TV shows through a numerology numerological lens, and like numerology 101 type videos. And I actually have to have quite a few videos that I've shot on my phone that need to be edited and just posted to YouTube. It's definitely going to have videos. So you can definitely wait out for the YouTube videos starting in October because it's like spooky month. And then of course, more stuff in 2025.
And then you had mentioned it earlier, but I'd also like to know, because your Instagram name is EbonixEsra, your social enterprise is Ethereal X Earth. Is the X pronounced, or is it more like Hunter Hunter roles?
Hey, you see me. Okay. So, yes. So, okay, long story short, when I was in high school, my girlfriend at the time was president of anime club. I'm a huge anime nerd, so I already was like down to be in the club, but I mostly joined the club for her because the club was mostly filled with boys that were like, oh, I'm the biggest anime nerd. No one can touch me. So I didn't really like the vibe of the club, but I would go occasionally because, you know, to support her. I remember I didn't know that the X in Hunter Hunter was silent. So I said Hunter X Hunter. And this guy goes, it's Hunter Hunter. And to this day, like years later, I never forgot about it. EbonixEsra, so my actual first name, like my birth name is Ebony with an I. And growing up, I used to draw a lot. And Ezra is my artist signature name. So when I was coming up with my artist name as an adult, I was already like, oh, EbonixEsra. That's like no brainer. Like that makes sense to me. And then I was like, how can I incorporate like multiple of my interests like into what I'm doing, because I do plan on, and this is why I love Megan Thee Stallion, because like she incorporated the anime stuff into her work. So I was like, how can I incorporate this? And then I was like, oh, I like randomly remembered that guy, and I was like shout out to him. I don't even know what his name is anymore, or anything. But I was like, let me put that X in there and make it silent, you know, Hunter Hunter, EbonixEsra, X marks the spot. As someone, I was reading this post earlier and they were describing Hunter Hunter and they were like, hide and seek between father and son gone wrong. Yeah, X marks the spot, you can't find him. So yeah, that's why that X is there. But I also just love the letter X. And in numerology, X is number 6, which is like related to balance and home and family and responsibility and like recognizing things that are bigger than yourself. And so I always wanted to like incorporate and keep that in whatever I did. And so that's why that X is usually there in my work.
You mentioned it before, but you also posted about it. You were doing a trial run about teaching a few people for about 4 sessions or so how to knit. How did the trial run go?
It did not go well, y'all. It did not go well. So I tried to make a survey form for it, and then it just didn't work. I don't know. I ended up fixing the glitch. I can be stubborn, y'all. I can be stubborn. So I tried to like fix the problem, and then I realized, you know what? Let me just start over and just give the survey to people again. And they graciously did it again for me. So we're now having it in October, and then the class won't be till November, end of October and November. But the good news about it is that now I have more things fleshed out before I actually run the class. Before it was going to be more like rogue and me just giving people supplies and like showing them one-on-one. Now it's going to be more of like, hey, this is like a set video time. Here's all the materials, including the written materials, the pattern, the videos, all that jazz. The way that I learned to knit can work very well if you don't have a job or other responsibilities. I learned to knit when I was 9. I'm 29, so I've been knitting for 20 years. And so originally I was going to teach the class that way because it worked for me. And then I realized I was 9. At 29, the way that I was taught, going to the Omega Boys and Girls Club, and I was literally there every day. So for months, I was able to have dedicated time with a person and maybe like 10 other kids to learn how to knit versus like someone working doesn't have all that time to just sit down. So I started making videos before I run the class, the trial run class. And that way, even if someone can't join the meetings, they can at least watch the videos and like read the materials and then message me when they can and like, make it more accessible. Cause that's honestly my goal, is to make knitting very accessible, because it's becoming more accessible with the digital age. But I think that there's still leaps and bounds to be made in terms of like how accessible it can be.
So you had mentioned teaching people to do various crafts to improve their lives. One was knitting. The other one mentioned was sewing. While teaching, you discuss things like culture and how they would use their crafts as spiritual practice. Can you tell us a little bit about these cultures?
Yeah, so I'm African American for context, and there's always debates as to whether my community even has a culture, which it does. Every community has a culture, technically speaking. But I think the best way to describe or talk about this is through soap making. So prior to the pandemic, I actually used to run a soap making business, and I actually would run soap making classes. For anybody that's familiar with like African Black soap, traditionally there's different things that different communities will do as they're processing the soap. So for example, some communities, as they're processing the soaps, will like purge all the negative thoughts that they have of others before they begin the process of making the soap. It's almost like they're purifying themselves, and then they create something that cleans other people. We'd be talking about things like that. We'd be talking about strategies and methods to creating a more like communal culture within the United States. It's not to say that there aren't communities that aren't communal. For example, I grew up in Vallejo and near Vallejo in different cities in the Bay Area where there's a huge Filipino community. And like one thing, being African American and being around the Filipino community, we had a lot of commonalities in regards to like aunties that aren't aunties, like family that's not family, like big community coming together to like cook together, big community coming together to like produce things, right? And so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about in regards to like sewing. And I even took an anti-fast fashion sewing class at Omni Commons in Oakland that did a bit of this, and carrying on that legacy, essentially talking about ways in which we can combat the exploitativeness that comes with making clothing and things like that too. So that's kind of what I was getting at with that. And in a way, to me, that is spiritual, because I do think that, at least personally, when I talk about spiritual warfare, I'm talking about the warfare against your mind, right? People essentially telling you that you always need to get the next best thing, and if you don't get the next best thing, you're not good enough. When it's like, hey, we should probably challenge that. Like, maybe you are good enough as you are, and if you do get something new, that's really just adding to who you already are. So when you learn this new craft, taking that in mind, that, hey, like, you don't have to make something in order to keep up with the trend. You can make something out of pure joy, and like that is spiritual in itself.
So you are an advocate. One of the things that you do is try to uplift those impacted by spiritual bigotry, like the LGBTQ plus community, the Black and Brown community, and those impacted by the colonization and utilization of Christianity to oppress. What are some of the ways you uplift those people, and how would you recommend some of our listeners to do the same?
Yeah, so one way in which I do that is shouting out, right? Like speaking people's names into rooms, crediting people. Sometimes the people that create things, if they're coming from those communities, are rendered invisible. And when they're rendered invisible, like narratives can be created about them that disparage them. I hate to bring this up, but it's been stuck in my head, and it's like the whole Haitians eating cats thing, for example. They're not eating cats, y'all. Like, please don't believe people saying that. They're not eating cats. With more visibility, for example, of the Haitian community, stories like that don't get played in a good way, right? Because if you know enough about a community, if you know enough about a person, you can stand tall and say, hey, I know that this group of people isn't doing this. I know that the LGBT community are not preying upon people, because I know people of community. So I would say like another way in which you could, uplift people is attending their events. right? Like if you see a local queer event, a queer trans event that is open to all, because there are some events, right, that are inclusive to only them in order to like provide safe, right? And there's discussions to be had about how to navigate that. Definitely still share those events, but if you're not a part of the LGBT community and they're asking that it be a space only for said group, maybe don't attend out of respect, right? But if it is like an event that's open to all, like attending those events, especially if you're not a part of the community, because you can learn a lot from being the quote unquote minority in a group that is often marginalized. You can get an idea of like how we communicate with each other so that, when you do have conversations with us that are more serious, you're able to come at it in a more understanding way. Investing in community, right? I'm not saying that you have to just give money out just because someone's gay. Like, you don't have to go walk down the street and be like, are you gay? Here's $5. Even though, as a queer person myself, if somebody came to me and said, hey, are you gay? And gave me $5, I wouldn't object. But at the same time, investing in communities for sure. And I'm using the LGBT community as an example, but like this can apply to any community, right? The Palestinian community, for example, the war on Gaza and the genocide against Palestinians, there's a lot of posts on Instagram where they're calling out for help, like sharing those posts even to your stories is so helpful right now. Like I'm going to butcher her name and I do apologize, but they go by Bisan and they go by wizard_BISAN1. They have a news channel and she has been dedicated to posting about her community. She's in Gaza right now. And so like even sharing those things, like things that don't even cost you money, all it costs you is like 2 seconds of your time. Educating yourself, like if you're in Sacramento, you're near going to Lavender Library and like checking out a book and like reading about our experiences, listening to our music, going to our restaurants, right? Like just invest in yourself in different ways. And as you're having those experiences, they're also learning about you. So it's like it's an exchange, right? Because you might be a part of one marginalized community and not another. Usually we're all part of some community. And even if you're not a part of any marginalized community, whether it's invisible or visible, there's still things that we can learn about each other.
Thank you for being our guest here on the What's in Your Case podcast. Do you have anything you'd like to promote or tell the listeners where they can find your content?
Yes. So check out my Instagrams. So EbonixEsra, Ezra with an Ebony with an I and Ezra with an S. So EbonixEsra on Instagram. I dream of Exie, the letter I, DreamExe. That's my business Instagram. And on there you can find links to my website and YouTube as well. I would say start there. That's your best rule of thumb. But if you want to go straight to my website, that'll be up by the time this podcast is out. It is ethereal, EtherealExearth.net. So you can check there as well. And then for November, I'll be posting my artist website. And that'll be EbonixEsra.com. So if you're curious of where to find me throughout this fall, those are areas that you can find me. I would definitely encourage you to check out my Instagram the most because that is where I'm the most active in terms of DMs. So it's like if you have questions, if you would like to hire me for anything, that's where you'd want to go.